welcoming music. Life is just a bowl of cherries. Don't take it serious. It's too mysterious. You work, you save, you worry so, but you can't take your dough when you go, go, go. So keep repeating, it's the berries. The strongest must fall. The sweet things in life to you were just loaned. So how can you lose what you've never owned? Life is just a bowl of cherries, so live and laugh at it all. Okay. Yeah. So can we get the first PowerPoint slide up? Right? Am I doing this right? Sermon time, yeah, okay. It's been a while since I've done this. Okay, so welcome to this presentation, to that one, which is entitled Behind the Mask. I can't see it from here. Look myself up, yeah. Oh yeah, sorry, yes. Oh, I guess I'm a little nervous. This is the world premiere of this presentation. Which am I doing? And I can't read it from here. Which am I? Which am I? And who am I doing? So in this presentation, I hope that you'll be entertained. We're on this now. Yeah, we're on this now. Yeah, okay. You'll both be entertained, and you'll also have some serious insights. We're going to take a look at what it is to be a human being, and how does one achieve liberation from the limitations of being a human being. And you'll be entertained, too, I hope. Okay, so we're going to start with something at the piano. When I was 8 years old, my parents decided I should have piano lessons. Little did they know what they were getting themselves into. By the age of 14, at a local park, I was accompanying silent movies at the piano. So many movies made prior to 1928, and there were thousands of them, were made without a soundtrack. The technology didn't yet exist to have a soundtrack synchronized to the movie. That came around 1928, 1929. But what would always happen is these so-called silent movies, at the time they just called them movies, these films were shown in an auditorium with some kind of music. And a big fancy presentation, like a world premiere of a major motion picture, they would have a whole symphony orchestra. In a medium-sized house, they might have a full organ that had all these different voices. And in an economy-style theater, there would be at least a piano player, maybe a trio. So here is a collection of tunes that you might have heard in a silent movie theater. But before I play, I have to make a disclaimer, because this is Unitarian Church. The following presentation includes theatrical stereotypes, which are presented for entertainment and instructional purposes only. Please do not interpret them as being suggestions on how you should actually behave. Our scene opens as the sun rises over a quaint cottage in the woods. Inside is our heroine, Nell Pureheart. Oh! Oh! A knock at the door reveals our stalwart yet lackadaisical hero, sterling, upright, strong heart. The crowing of a nearby rooster tells us the day is done. As the night falls, the villains come out. Who should barge in the door? That dastardly fiend, the mortgage holder, Hickey Z. Pimpleton. Hickey threatens Nell. You must pay the rent, or else I shall foreclose the mortgage on your happy home and throw you out into the cold, hard world. Unless, of course, you will consent to take my claw in holy matrimony. No! Nell stands erect. Hickey Z. Pimpleton, I shall never marry you, you dastard! Very well then, says Hickey. If I cannot have you, then no one shall. And he carries her off. Help, help! However, our hero, sterling, upright, strong heart, is in hot pursuit. Hickey ties Nell to the railroad tracks. The United States cavalry rushes to the rescue. But Hickey blows up a mountain and blocks their path. Oh! Hickey gloats maniacally. I have you in my clutches now, my proud beauty. However, in the nick of time, our hero arrives. And they do battle. Hickey and Stalwart have a conversation over a cup of coffee, and they decide to let Nell decide what she wants. Nell votes for Stalwart, and democracy saves the day. Love reigns triumphant. My hero! My hero. And Nell's happy home is restored. Oh! Oh! And that's all, folks. Thank you. Okay. All right, back to this PowerPoint slide. So, then, oh, here, I've got the clicker. Yes. Very good. Where do I put it? There? No. Up. Okay, great. So that was the slide for this. And so what lesson can we learn from being a silent movie pianist? Sometimes being supportive can make the whole world of difference. Because when you're a silent movie pianist, you're not on the stage. You're in the pit. You're invisible, but what your contribution is, which is the music, can change what can be a boring, not very interesting film to a lively, gripping melodrama, like a powerful story. All right, what's the secret? Where do I point this so that it works? You. This? We didn't rehearse that part. Okay, and I turn it on, and now I'm pointing it at you, and it's still not advancing. I could just ask for it. Can you do it? Okay, well, you did that, yes. Okay, all right, next slide. All right, so here's some of the heavy stuff we're going to look at. What is a personality, and what is a person? Remember, we're going to take a look at what it is to be a human being. So, simply put, a personality is characteristics that makes each of us different, and a persona are the characteristics that we manifest at any one time. So we might have one group of characteristics that's our public persona, the personality, the type of person we are when we're in public, but we'll have a different group of characteristics when we're in private. Or maybe with our business colleagues, we'll have a different kind of how we present ourselves, our ways of being, than we are with our very close friends. Or ever go to a holiday party with some of your relatives and you find you're just not the person you usually are? You put on a different personality. So the question is, what is a human being? At essence, what is a human being? And my father, who was a psychiatrist, used to describe a person, this is the psychiatrist's perspective, as a bundle of conditioned responses. In other words, we have experiences when we're younger, and we have a response to some kind of experience, whether it's backing up, backing away, stepping forward, changing the topic, confronting, whatever. And the fact that we survive that attempt creates a construct, a conditioned response. And we put these together to make what we call a personality. All right? So what typical human being is, according to the perspective of my father, is we are a bundle of these conditioned responses walking around in life, and when something emerges that reminds us or gives us a challenge that we have to do something about it, our default response is to respond with a way that worked in the past, that worked to keep us alive, which is everything that's happened because we're still alive, right? So our experiences in the present and how we react to people is based on what happened in the past that reminded us of what it's like now, and that is our default interpretation of our personality. Who I am is a person who has assembled all these experiences and decided how I react to them. And when we're very young, we don't decide how we're going to react. We just do what we do. We cry, we scream, we yell, we run away, we wet the bed, whatever. And as we grow older, we just say, oh, well, that worked back then when I was 2, and we don't even think about it anymore. But we become these conditioned responses. And this was the rather depressing opinion of my father. But from having taken a number of experiences with different forms of Eastern philosophy, I would like to offer for you the following as an alternative reality, and then you can use it at least for the duration of our talk. What we are at essence is a pure consciousness which always has to decide how to react to what happens in the present moment. And one of our choices is to use the stuff that happened in the past, but we also could choose to not use the response that we had used in the past. Now this takes a maturity, because when we're very young, all we know is to react the way that worked in the past to keep us alive. But as we get older, we can take a look at that. We can put aside the automatic response and instead take on a higher consciousness, a higher intelligence, and say, well, given that I have something happening in the now, sudden surprise meeting with a police officer or something, how can I respond? And in the past, it might have been, oh, get away, lie, but in the present, it might be, I wonder how he's doing, or she, how's this police officer doing? And so as an alternative, if we step into our present moment responses, not based on our past decisions, but based upon how we are now, and our choices, more mature possibilities, something we've never done before, then instead of becoming an automaton, a robot who's always doing what they've done all their life so far, we become a being of infinite potential. If life gives us a new stimulus and our response can be anything we want to make up, then we can be anything. We can act any way we want. We can say to the police officer, want to have a beer? When you're off work, right? But we can, invite friendship, which might be the exact opposite of what happened in your past. So, what I'd like to show you now is take you on an adventure onto some of the characters that I have portrayed in my life as a performer, and share with you some of the insights and spiritual messages that I believe I got from these. And then you can take and leave it for yourself, or just find it interesting. So here we go. Next slide, please. Okay, so when I was 17, 3 years after doing silent movie accompaniment, I went to the Renaissance pleasure fairs as a musician. Now, Shakespeare rather sadly said, all the world's a stage, the men and women merely players, as though that were a bad thing. But the people who put on the Renaissance fair said, all the fair's a stage, so come on down and join the players. So when I first started working at the Renaissance fair as a musician, I knew what I was going to do. From my past, I had done rehearsals and worked with the other musicians, and we played. But one day, we saw a kid who was our age, 17 years old, who got to stay over at night at the fair, where we heard there were wild parties. So me and 2 other guys, you'll see them in the picture there, we dressed up as mimes. And we thought, oh, even though we're 17, if we look like mimes, the security will think that we're part of the mime troupe, and we'll get to stay over, and we'll go to those wild parties. So for a couple hours, we had whiteface on, and we were mimes. Now, the rule with being a mime is you can't talk. So I had a couple hours with this makeup on, and I didn't know what to do, but I had to do something because I was at the fair. There were people all around interacting. So what I did was I drew upon my past experiences of watching Charlie Chaplin and Laurel and Hardy and Harry Langdon and Harold Lloyd and Murray Dressler, the silent movie actors who I loved watching on TV as a kid and loved playing the piano for them. So that was my first character at the Renaissance Fair. It was an amalgamation of Harry Langdon and Stan Laurel and a lot of silent movie characters. But what it came to pass was that my buddies and I, our show evolved, and we became very popular. We were the most popular act at the Renaissance Fair, which got 250,000 people every season. And we added verbal comedy as well as things like juggling and fire eating and tightrope walking, and we were very popular. So one of the spiritual lessons I learned from this was the value of humility, because I was not the star of this show. I was just a 17-year-old kid who got dragged into something that looked like it was fun, and then I became one of 3 stars. But what each of us did was we allowed the others to shine from time to time. We had our moments when our colleagues said, now Jeffrey gets to do his thing, and other times when Jeffrey and the other guy, Billy or Sandy, would say, and now the third guy gets to show his magnificence. And by having this humility to let the others shine rather than ourselves, what came back to us was they let us shine, and then we made the audiences laugh, and it's a very heady brew to make thousands of people laugh so hard that they fall off their hay bales and they want to come up afterwards and meet you. Now, I did learn one of the drawbacks of fame, which is that when you have fame, which in this microcosm, 250,000 people, per season, that's a pretty big audience. At least it was for a 17-year-old kid. But when you have fame, what comes with it is prejudice. That is, people think that who you are, the real you, the essence of you, is something like what they saw on the stage. Now, when you're on the stage, you have the script, you have your colleagues, you always know what's going to happen next. But when you meet people in real life, they want you to live the character you were on the stage. This is true for politicians, famous celebrities, and so on. And my experience as a young kid who was a star was when people got to meet me and we weren't on stage anymore and it was just 2 people talking, they were disappointed. I could see it on their faces, like, oh, I met the famous Jeffrey of the comedy group, Cock and Feathers, and he's not eternally funny and glib and knows what's going to happen next in life. It was just like, it was like life. I don't know what's going to happen next. What do you want to have happen next? And they were like, oh, that's sad. So this is the price of fame, that people arrive to meet you with prejudice. So next time you meet a celebrity in a supermarket or something, don't just run up to them and say, wow, I loved you in that movie. Can I have your autograph? Because maybe they're there because their grandson has a health problem and they're buying something. So let's have consideration for everyone, including the stars. Okay, next slide. On the left are the real guys, and on the right are me and my colleagues. Stan Laurel of the comedy team of Laurel and Hardy. The lesson from Stan Laurel is that he's a blank page. Fundamentally, he's just ready to take on whatever life gives him. He doesn't have a lot of prejudices. He's not a hostile man, but if you give him injustice, he'll give it back to you and amplify it. That was the characteristic of this comedy team, Laurel and Hardy. Escalating playful violence. But one of the great things about the character of Stan Laurel, which I discovered in 1979 when I joined an already established act, and joined this act, was Stan Laurel is an example of a man who can cry in public and people don't say, oh, we don't like, it's not shunned. In our general culture, men, the stereotype is that they won't cry. But Stan Laurel, in a comical way, could cry. And it was an incredible blessing for me as a human being, as a man, to go, oh, with this persona, putting on this mask as this character, I can cry in public and people aren't going to think I'm weak, they're going to think I'm talented. So, another one of the insights of the character of Stan Laurel is sometimes the right thing to do is absolutely nothing. And just wait until the next moment comes where it becomes clear, what the right thing to do is. So one of the things you'll see with the character of Stan Laurel, and we're about to see a clip of me as Stan Laurel, is when something happens, before he reacts, there's a little pause. My first teacher called it a think pause. There's a pause where he thinks, and then he takes action. So let's watch the clip right now, okay? That's the next slide. You'll see two characters here, both Stan Laurel and 40 seconds later, Charlie Chaplin. Thank you. It's fun. So Stan Laurel had his message. 2 years after being yeah, you can take that off now. You can, at Knott's Berry Farm, and then I did a lot of corporate things, parties at hotels, birthday parties, weddings, employee appreciation events, things like that. Now, in preparing to do Charlie Chaplin, in this picture, that's the real Charlie to the left, and a painting of him to the far right, and me in the middle. Okay, and preparing to play the role of Chaplin, I did a lot of homework because I was filling the shoes of the fellow who did the IBM commercials for Charlie Chaplin in the IBM commercials. So I really wanted to do a good job. And so what I did was I watched a lot of Charlie Chaplin movies, and then when I felt like I was ready was when I believed that if a certain stimulus happened, let's say, you know, a man with a big mustache shows up and says, "You can't flirt with that girl, she's my girlfriend." I had within my potential the way to respond that was true to the character of Charlie Chaplin, because I'd seen him in 60 or 70 films, the way to respond that would be appropriate, that he would have actually done. For example, the big guy comes up to Charlie Chaplin and says, "Stay away from my girlfriend." Charlie Chaplin might punch him in the nose, turn around, kick him in the pants. He might grab the girl and take her away. He might flirt with the girl anyway. He might start flirting with the guy, or he might just turn around and run away, right? So once I felt like I had a repertoire of all those different persona or responses that Charlie Chaplin might do to a stimulus, then I felt like I had mastered the character. This is a not very hidden metaphor for what we do in life. When a stimulus comes to us, we become aware that there are a bunch of different responses we could have. For example, your child starts crying. One response is you just get out of there and say, "That's not my kid. No, no." Another one is that you console him or her unconditionally. Another is you say, "Well, what's up?" You ask, you have a conversation, assuming your child's old enough to speak. "What's up? Why are you upset?" Right? So we have a dozen or so different responses, and this is how we create who we are. So let me continue with some of the things I learned from some of the characters I did. Let's do the next slide. Oh yeah, okay, so I got to tell this story. So this is what inspired this whole sermon was one day I was flirting, I was dressed as Charlie Chaplin, and I was flirting with this girl, and right behind the girl was her boyfriend, who was a big, motorcycle biker kind of guy. It was at a corporate party, and, they had all different kinds of people. And so I'm flirting with this girl, and her boyfriend is going, "Ha, ha, 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 Charlie, you're so funny." But for a moment, I stepped inside of myself, and I became me, Jeffrey Briar, this collection of bundle of conditioned responses. I became Jeffrey Briar, and I said, "Wait a minute, I'm really Jeffrey Briar, who's flirting with this girl under the mask of Charlie Chaplin. And if I didn't have this mask, if it was just me, the guy would not be responding with, oh, ha, 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 Charlie, you're so funny. Instead, he'd go, hey, what's a big idea? You know, that's my property, or whatever. But having that insight of going, wow, when I put on the mask, there are a whole bunch of different possibilities that open up in the world, and I can mine those possibilities, okay? So I wanted to share that with you and with the whole world, that and when we realize that who we think we are is just one collection of personalities, personae, but you can put on another one and you can be a different person. And that when you realize you can do that, you can be anything. Okay, next one. Next slide, if you please. All right, so another character I played was Inspector Clouseau. His message is, be courageous even when facing the unknown. Also known as, you can bluff your way through anything, and maybe if you're lucky, you'll end up solving the mystery. So in this, I got a sense that the way to function as a character, to be a character and function, is to first choose who you're going to be, choose what your personality is, then commit to take an action that's consistent with that personality, and then there will be consequences. And so you play with those consequences as the personality. So again, you choose who you're going to be, Inspector Clouseau, brave and fearless. You take an action, you stand up against the bad guy, and then you face the consequences. He pulls a gun at you, on you, and you do what Clouseau would do. Okay, so next slide, please. Another character I've played is Ludwig van Beethoven. His spiritual message is one of fortitude, perseverance despite challenges, and generosity of spirit, because he made contributions that were intended for all of humanity, not just for his personal gain. And on the same slide, you'll see being a yoga teacher. Now, one of the things that happens when you are a yoga teacher and you put out to the world that that's what you do is people will, once again, have prejudice. They'll judge you. So the prejudice that people give yoga teachers is that, oh, you must be calm and balanced all the time and nothing ever bothers you. The yoga teachers here, like, what? And the reality is, you say, no, I still have problems, but also I have this touchstone. I have this place I can go to with my practice where I can get back in touch with my body and my mind and hopefully feeling like I'm one with spirit. Next slide. One of my favorite roles, Reverend Briar. So as a reverend, you're poised, you're confident, and people, once again, judge you. And they say, oh, you must be the wise one. You must know the truth. You must be in touch with spirit. Well, the reality is, we're human beings. We don't know what to do. One time I was invited to do a wedding, and I was all set and ready to go, and then at the last minute they said, oh, we need to bless the food. Reverend Briar? And I had never done a food blessing before. So, and I knew that in the congregation of this party, there were people who were very conservative and others who were more liberal, and I didn't want to offend anybody. So I made up a sermon that was about gratitude and being grateful for the food and the servants and everyone and the spirit that had brought it into existence. And it kept everyone happy. Okay, with Reverend Briar. I'm not going to have enough time to tell you the story about Lorraine and the chocolate. But, okay, next slide, please. All right, so this was the most terrifying character I ever played. It was back at the Renaissance Fair. Why was it terrifying? Because I had to be so vulnerable. The story was the love fool, who you see here, just kind of looked like a guy but with a little makeup. So it wasn't Charlie Chaplin or anything. He had been living in France for 2 years. This was actually true, so his French was pretty good. And the French girl that he fell in love with left him. This was also true. And then what happened was it broke his heart. And here's the fantasy. It broke his heart open, and now he loves everything and everyone. And so I would be in the streets as this character, and a person, oh, I love you. And I would speak to them in French. Vous êtes la plus belle fille que j'avais jamais vue, which means you're the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. And then I would say to her boyfriend, I would say, you too, I love you too. Il faut que j'ouvre la fenêtre, which means I have to open the window. And so if someone was there who spoke French, they would go, this is really absurd and funny and weird. And but for me, it was just like, we'll see what happens, right? I chose the character I was going to be, guy who loves with his heart broken open. I made a commitment to act, flirting, loving a trash can, a dog, whatever. And then I played with the consequences. And one of the nice things that happened was I flirted vigorously with an 80-year-old woman. I mean, it was like, we're going to get married. She's in a wheelchair, and I it's like, oh, you must be the woman of my dreams, and sometimes in French. And then She went away, and a little while later, her daughter came back. Her daughter was in her 60s, and she said, "Thank you, you made my Mother's Day." Okay, so let's go on to the next slide. Woo! All right, so now we're going to start to wrap it up, because another thing that happened in my life was, as a kind of a performer, was I became a champion of laughter yoga. Here too, people think, oh, you must have no worries, everything, anything goes wrong, you just laugh it into non-existence, and it's like, no, 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 I have problems too, but I have this touchstone where I can go there every once in a while, get together with my friends or new strangers, and just laugh, and then away goes the stress. So we're going to have a couple experiences with laughter yoga to wrap up the presentation. So I'd like to ask you all to stand up if you're willing, and we're going to do laughter exercises which illuminate spiritual values. All right, the first one is open-hearted laughter. So you put your hands close to your heart, and then you open them as you look at a person, and you're grateful that they're, so don't just face me, look around at each other, and I'll come and join you. So we'll do it for about 20 seconds, open-hearted laughter. Ready? Open. Okay, good. Relax, let that go. Next, we're going to do gratitude laughter. So look around the room. Whatever you see, you're great. A lamp. Oh, ho, ho, ho. So there's laughing. Stained glass. Ho, ho, ho. Someone's shoe. Oh, ho, ho. Okay, so enjoy gratitude. Laugh. Oh, ho, ho, ho. Mwah. Oh. Okay, very good. Let it go. One more. One of the things that laughter yoga cures is taking yourself too seriously, because often we just take everything so seriously. So we're going to do a laughter exercise to banish over seriousness. It's called laugh at yourself. So point at yourself, look at the mask I'm wearing, whatever. But you're laughing, and they're going, me too, I'm even crazier than you are. Okay, so let's laugh as we laugh at ourselves. Start. Very good, relax. Okay, take your seats. Take your seats. I just want to wrap it up by just saying, remember that what you ultimately are at heart is pure consciousness, which decides in any given moment, in every moment, decide who you're going to be. So I invite you to be a person with values that you choose, set your highest ideals, and live those values like kindness, love, generosity, humility, compassion. When you come from a place of compassion, then what follows will be justice. And if you want to be the hero of your melodrama, or the girl that takes it easy, or the villain that acts impulsively without considering others, that's your choice. But you might want to take on, from compassion, having a sense for justice, liberty, and dismantling oppressions. I love that from UU values. So, for my final words, I would just like to say, may you find much joy in this play of life. Thank you.